Alright guys, welcome back to the video. So today we're doing another Retire On series. This one's on SCHD. Now, the point of these videos is not to go all in on one stock or one ETF. It is just the point to figure out how much we would need in order to get $60,000 a year. Alright, so this is not financial advice. I am not your financial advisor. I'm not telling you to go all in on this stock or any other one stock. I'm just sharing information so we can just get an overview of what we would need in this one asset to get 60 grand a year. With that said, I'm already not responsible for anything you buy or anything you lose money on. Now, let's move forward. So, SCHD is the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, okay? Now, it basically tracks the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index, and it has 103 holdings as of the time recording this video. Now, I do want to say that as of the time of recording this video, the price of SCHD is $26.93, and it basically has a dividend yield of like 3.84% depending upon where you're looking. Now, that yield is a little bit messed up because SCHD did do a split in October 2024. So we have to just use this year's numbers on the quarterly dividend rather than the long term. It has a very long track record of dividends, which makes it nice to be able to look at what you're going to get. But when these do a split, be it reverse or forward, it messes up the numbers. So moving forward with that, I want to simply say that this is a very safe asset with a low yield. All right, so it does have a place in portfolios, but at the same time, you're not going to have that high yield, so you're not going to have a low number you're going to need, obviously, to collect 60 grand a year. Now, you can change the numbers however you want if you don't want 60 grand a year, and use the same formula I'm going to put on the screen to figure out how much you need in any one asset. So, moving forward, if we know that the share price currently is $26.93 and we have a 3.84% yield, the only other piece of information we really need is how much it actually pays. Now, what I do is I generally go back and find the lowest dividend, not counting the first one, and we use that. So we are going to our lowest common denominator to figure out the yield as far as what you need share-wise. Now, because of the reverse split, we can only go back like a year basically. So the lowest basically, to round it, would be 25 cents. It just makes the numbers easy. It was slightly below that, but I think we can all agree that 25 cents is fine. So if we want $60,000, you need to take that number and divide that by 4 because it's a quarterly payer, which means 4 times a year it pays. Now, that's going to give you $15,000 a quarter that you need. All right. So now that we know how much we need a quarter, we can work it down another level. So if you need $15,000 a quarter, you divide that by 25 cents. The 15,000 divided by 25 cents equals 60,000 shares we need in order to get that a quarter. Now, it's pretty simple here, and that's the beauty of quarterly ones on these videos. It doesn't take long to figure it out. 60,000 shares times the current share price of $26.93 equals you need $1,615,800. I'm going to say that again because that's a pretty big number. $1,615,800. Now, that's a lot of money, guys. And honestly, it is a safe investment, but you also have to ask yourself, if I was using the 4% rule on index funds, I would probably only need $1,500 or so. Now, that's based with adding in for inflation and other things, but I'm just saying you're kind of on par. Now, one thing I always do in these videos is I talk about reinvesting. So before we go any farther talking about the asset itself, I want to say that I would not reinvest anything in SCHD unless I was trying to grow my yield above 60 grand. It has proved time and time again that it can take care of itself. You really should not be having to reinvest to fix it. It does a really good job of recovering. If we had a long downturn in any asset, you would obviously have to reinvest some to hold up your yield. But I think generally speaking, this one can take care of itself without reinvestment, which actually makes it slightly better on the scale if you don't have to put money back into it, because you get to keep all your yield. Now, with that said, we have to ask ourselves, are we better off just index investing? Are we better off with something with a slightly higher yield? And I would say this to you. Go away from the yield and the money and everything else and ask yourself, what kind of retiree are you going to be? Are you going to be a person that stresses over selling shares? Is that going to bother you? Because I would say if that does bother you, then this is the way I would go. If you selling shares is going to mess with your mentality, put the extra 100,000 or whatever it takes to make this work in SCHD and go that way. And just collect your dividends and go. Because honestly, even in taxation form, there's really not too much difference between this and index investing. It's just a mentality. If you have no problem selling shares, you could save a little less and do it with index funds, honestly. So it's pretty interesting to look at this as an asset because it's well known and well loved in the community. But the truth of the matter is you're paying Peter, you're basically stealing from Peter to pay Paul. If you think about it, if you're building an account up of $1.6 million essentially, I mean, you're paying taxes on all that all the way up. Granted, after the first year, it becomes long-term capital gains. But if you did the same thing in index funds, you wouldn't pay any taxes. So it's not tax efficient in that way when you're building your portfolio. On another side to this, because you have to look at it from all angles. If you had, say, a 401k and you're at retirement age now, you could change it over inside there and take your amount you had in your target fund or whatever. And when you put it in your IRA to roll it away from your company, you could flip this all to SCHD in one move, and then you would never have to sell a share. You just collect the yield. So there's ways to get around that. Also, you could hold it in a Roth. You could do a lot of different things. But I wanted to give every side of this because I think this is for a very certain type of individual, or for a person that wants something that set it and forget it to add to their dividend portfolio to just give it some underlying strength. You know what I mean? To hold it up, to give it a little growth, to give it a little something extra. I do know people that sell options on SCHD. I have not found it to be worthwhile personally, but I know other people that do. So with that said, I think you can see this is obviously a good investment. It's been around for years. They actually reverse split it, which makes it real nice if you do like to sell options on it because it's much cheaper now. And it's also much cheaper if you're on a platform that makes you buy full shares. I do think it's worth looking at. I do think that it could be a good addition to any portfolio. But with that said, and if you haven't already, go down, hit subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you see all of our upcoming videos. Give us a like. Hit us up in the comments and tell us, do you own SCHD? Because we actually do not own it anymore. Would you want to own it in retirement rather than sell shares? I think that's a very important part of retirement, the mentality of it. But with that said, we will see you in the next one.